This is the Hot Take Hockey Podcast with your hosts, Lucas and John Viveiros.
Trade deadline will tip the needle in a certain area, but like I want to believe in this team specifically. I want to believe in them so badly.
Yeah.
But damn, man, there's been so many like, yeah, they can. Oh, okay.
John, Omar just teed you up there.
Oh, Omar,
Omar
made my job easy. Easy transition. So the state of the Leafs as it is right now.
Yeah.
Dubas, buddy. No contract extension. This is the trade deadline where I know we always tee up the splashes or talk about the potential splashes. So a little segment here. I'll start because I'll let you guys think about it for a second if you don't got a name in mind. But Leaf targets, if you had your like top 3 list or your top 1 target, who is it? So for me, I look at like what the team needs, but also obviously the dream candidate. So I think one guy that's been kind of shoved down our throats recently is Timo Meier. I think looking at the Sharks situation and Meier's age, and then obviously the qualifying offer and RFA status, all this stuff comes into play here. So I don't know if that's a target for now and in the future or what it is, but so that's I would say unrealistic one. But then I look at the realistic chances here and I look at Nashville and I would say I've seen a lot of people throwing out the Jeannot and Matthias Ekholm conversation. So for me, I like the Tanner Jeannot conversation for a third line. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but watching Engvall this year, 6'5", and not laying a body for a second, it's gotten so bad that I'm like, this can't happen going into the playoffs. You can't be skating by guys on the Lightning without even a breath. So I'm looking at Jeannot and Ekholm. I know the stereotypical Leaf fan sometimes on Twitter going, we need toughness and grit and all that stuff. But I mean, I think Jeannot and Ekholm bring a lot more than that. But Omar, man, I know you've thrown out some names up there on Twitter. Who are your like maybe couple or top 3 on your list that you're really got your eyes on, or Dubas should have his eyes on?
Yeah, Meier's been another name that I kind of circled around. I wonder if there's a realm where Travis Konechny is moved. I think that could be an interesting little mix of both, grit, annoyance, and players that can finish. Because like I'm bunting on one line and him on the other would be hilarious.
Oh, that'd be great.
But I am with you, man. Like I respect Engvall's speed and I respect what he does on the penalty kill and I respect his finishing power. But like there are moments where I just watch him and it's just like, I mean, you could have rushed the net a little there, instead of just taking like a long shot into the chest, just pull it into the backhander a little bit. I just don't think. Keefe has talked about like scoring playoff type goals, and I don't know if Engvall can do that, or if he's like the type of like personality that we need in a long playoff run. So it would be interesting to maybe have a replacement there, but like Konechny's been a name that I've kind of been like I guess eyeing and circling, and I think I want to say Dubas and like a scout or Dubas and like another AGM was like in Philly watching a game. So
yeah, it was the Coyotes Flyers game, so maybe there's a Coyotes target as well in there.
Oh
yeah, man. Quickly jumping in on it too. I think my dream scenario for the Leafs is to upgrade forward, obviously over defense. And particularly it would be 2 guys on the Blues, being O'Reilly and Tarasenko. Obviously both of those probably happening, very unlikely, but one of those options I think would be huge for them going into playoffs. That's kind of the sexier pick. Obviously the Blackhawks have 2 stars up there that would be nice as well, but I think that's dreaming. And then the less sexy pick that I also have started to circle comes from Chicago, both players actually, Anthony Ciu and Max Domi. I think Max Domi is kind of similar to that Konechny realm of player, less skilled, like obviously less proven, we'll call it at this point in his career at least. But I think Max Domi, especially just with the whole Ty Domi's son hype, would be crazy, him playing for the Leafs. And Athanasiou, I think, brings that speed and could score a few big goals in the playoffs. So those are kind of my forward targets.
Yeah, Athanasiou would actually be pretty interesting because you don't really notice how. I don't know if you don't notice it, but it's not talked about how fast he is. Like it's actually like it's surprising. I remember back when he was on Detroit and he was facing the Leafs and he just like took off down the wing and I was like, holy crap! Like you forget like how fast he is. So that actually could be a pretty interesting dynamic. I guess a question for you two. Yarncroke's been fitting in pretty nicely.
Yep,
he has.
Do you think Dubas says, maybe we can leave it. We bring in Nyes, and that kind of finalizes things there. I don't want that, but like, do you think that the thought process is taking place?
Well, I think the thought process is taking place. What I will say is kind of back to the Engvall conversation, just based on fit and how this roster will look, hopefully going into the playoffs. I realistically don't think that happens unless you move Engvall out to me, Kampf takes on too much of a role to ever send him back down. I think at this point, especially what we saw in the playoffs, I think Kampf is your third line guy, unless you get a significant upgrade. Like, I think you'd have to go for a big time upgrade to send Kampf down. But so Kerfoot, Engvall, if Yarncrow takes that slide down, is it a trade for one of those guys, or is it one of those guys just getting stuff from the fourth line? What I will say though is, just on what you said, that mindset definitely comes into play as well on what Dubas will look for. So I know everyone's talking about the big splash, but look what he just did with Arizona. Everyone talks about Chychrun. Everyone wants to connect Chychrun to the Leafs, but then he goes for the underrated guy in Timmins. And I feel like that could be a similar outcome, whether it's like I look at, as I just said, Nashville or like Chicago. Everyone wants to connect Patrick Kane, including myself, to Toronto somehow, but then Domi could slip in. Yeah, Lucas, what do you think? I feel like the Nyes conversation could come into play, but I just think Yarncrow's looked so good on that second line lately.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Nyes play for the Leafs when the day comes. Hopefully it'll be this year. But I don't think that you can put your eggs in the basket thinking he's going to do what an addition would do from another team, right? Like the guys we've talked about here. So I think that's a bit of a cop-out if Dubas does that. At the same time, I think he's a very valuable piece that should be a Maple Leaf for years and years to come. So I do not want him traded whatsoever. But I think it's on Dubas to make a big move and to address for the forward core. Even if Yarncrow is playing very well, they still, I think, are a big piece away for rounding out that team. And maybe that means a guy going out the other door, right? Like Kerfoot, Engvall, whoever it is. Right.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, can you make, because apparently Dubas doesn't want to move Nyes, which I 100% agree with. And the first round pick. Can you make a big move without moving your top prospect or a first rounder?
So what's the percentage that one of Robertson, Niemela, and Voigt, one of those guys gets moved before the deadline in your eyes?
High. Yeah. I think the first two, they need to detach from holding on to that. If that's what's going to get a big move done, you have to do that. It's too crucial at this time period with the way things are going in the future with Matthews' contract, Nylander's contract, all of these things uncertain. The first round pick cannot be attached to, I don't think.
Yeah. Don't do a Foligno, Dubas. Don't have the fear.
But no Foligno.
But don't do a Foligno. But I will say, I know, Lucas, you just talked about the big Blues guys. I hope Dubas doesn't cop out, but I wonder if he goes for like the bigger option and then maybe a low-key option. So everyone's going to talk about O'Reilly and Tarasenko with the Blues, but does Dubas go after a Barbashev type player? Like that's going to be a guy pending UFA. Another name I'll throw.
That's
out there.
Another good name.